Great, couple more.
Good afternoon. We're going to do a sound check. Adrian, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Can hear you too.
Thank you.
Zoom. There's Sam. Right here, Sam. All right. And then if you can get Sam the sheet, great.
Thank you.
All right. While you're signing in, we'll get started. Welcome everyone to the March 13th, 2025 Monroe County Planning Board meeting. Oh, sorry. Did you start recording yet? I'll do that over. All right, here we go. Yep. Welcome everyone to the March 13th, 2025 Monroe County Planning Board meeting. We have a public hearing that has to happen today. But first, let me call roll. And we also have minutes from the March 6th. I see on here as well. So Bill Santos, that's me. Mike Wiedemer.
Here.
Sam Trapani.
Here.
Andrew Hollister.
Present.
Orlando Rivera.
Here.
Dave Watson.
Here.
Millie Safranik. Legislator Colby. Legislator Barnhart.
I am here. I do have to drop at 4 o'clock, so thank you.
Great, thanks for the heads up. Jeff McCann. Adrian Green.
Here.
Amy Grower. Connor McMahon.
Here.
Robert Franklin. Joe Taddeo.
Here.
Richard Tantalo.
Here.
Richard. Christina Doherty. Afternoon. Sean Murphy.
Here.
And Andy Frazier. Okay, great. And Yishen, would you like to announce staff or presenters, or you want to wait for presentations for that? It's up to you.
I would start with, for the planning staff here, we have Pat Butch and myself, Ishan, and also Lisa Hunting over there. And we have guests over here. It's all CIP department representatives. And we also have John Cantarino from Town of Greece join us via Zoom.
Okay, great.
That's all. We also have 2 other registrants for Zoom for the public hearing, but I have not seen them appear.
Okay, great. Thank you. Millie's coming in? Okay, great. Thank you, Pat. Hi, Millie. Come on in. It's a spot right here if you want. Yeah. Yeah. Great. You didn't miss anything, just introductions. All right, announcements and communications.
I just want to mention that the addendum to the proposed 2026 to 31st was sent to you via email, and we also have hard copy today to add to your proposed CIP book. And the addendum provides an update table showing the estimated annual impact on the operating budget for each project listed in the CIP. And there's no change to the schedule or the programs.
This one or this one?
This one, yeah.
This one. Okay. Great. All right, great. Any other comments or communications? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2. I'd like to open up the public hearing Actually, I need a motion for that, please, to open up the public hearing. Thank you, Sam. Second by Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. I now declare public hearing open for the 2026 through 2031 capital improvement program. And I'd like to welcome Pat Gooch, who is going to present our program to the public.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate you inviting the department for this. And I'd like to just restate, like last meeting, this is a group effort. All these people in this room have contributed to this document and this work. And then planning and finance have worked closely to work with them and make sure that this is the best possible version that we can present this year. So with that, let's launch into this. Every year, Monroe County creates a CIP, which is a 6-year program or a capital improvement program. Once we go through an internal process to figure out what are the capital needs of the departments, we then put together that program and present it to the Monroe County Planning Board, which is why we are here today and here a couple times this month. For anyone interested online, you can access a copy of the digital CIP through this link. It is at www.monroecounty.gov/planning-CIP, and you'll see the most current version, which says proposed 2026-2031 CIP, and along with all our historic CIPs as well. So what is a capital project? For Monroe County, these are projects that the county pays for through long-term debt and other non-debt sources. They're physical objects that we are looking at. So we do this through operating budget, through grants, intergovernmental aid, so think of federal and state aid. Non-debt sources are included to facilitate coordination with the debt sources, and because it presents a total package of information for county decision makers and finance. What a capital project is defined in the charter, section C4-10C. Any public betterment or improvement for which a period of probable usefulness may be authorized pursuant to section 11 of the local finance law of the state of New York, or any studies or surveys relative thereto. Or acquisition of land or rights therein. Any furnishings, machinery, apparatus, or equipment for any such betterment or improvement, when such betterment or improvement is first constructed or acquired, or any combination thereof. So we do have additional administrative standards that we work on above the charter requirements. And these just help finance tell the departments what are the best ways to work with these funding sources and how we do this. And so the parameters that we lay out every year with the departments and change as the needs change, but these have been the parameters for a few years now. The cost of any bonded capital project should exceed $100,000 and have a useful life of at least 5 years. The cost of any cash capital project should be $250,000 or less and should have a useful life of less than 5 years. Equipment and motor vehicles, other than passenger vehicles, may be bonded for if the product meets the cost and useful life criteria. Generally see the first bullet there, so $100,000 in 5 years. Normal annual maintenance expenses, landscape maintenance are not capital expenses, and non-reoccurring repairs, roof patching are. So those are things that can be included in the capital program. Monroe County must have ownership or long-term interest for a term at least equal to the financing period. That will vary based on what we are purchasing or doing. Think of a vehicle being a short-term period, physical structure, much longer period. So there are various sources of funding in the capital improvement program. And so those you'll see through the presentation and in the CIP books, if you look at it online, they can be summed up as county sources, district sources, enterprise sources, state and federal grants, and private sources. However, you can break those down into further categories as well. So there's county revenues and county cash. C equals county revenues in your books. CC equals county cash. County revenues essentially are property and sales tax, financed via the operating budget or bonds. District is district project revenues or district cash. Districts are things like the Pure Waters District. They have district charges for the use of the sewer system. Once again, they have revenues coming in and they have cash on hand. Enterprise user fees. So these are governmental entities that offer service to the general public or specific users. This is the aviation department, solid waste, Monroe Community Hospital. Those user fees go to pay for those services and fees and all capital programs. They once again have fees and cash. State and federal grants, Probably the most self-explanatory, we work with our partners at the federal and state level to receive grants and sometimes private as well. We apply for those, we roll them into the capital budget to offset the cost for county taxpayers. Often happens for the Department of Transportation, think of the roads that you drive on, aviation, and then there are other grants as well, but those are the typical yearly reoccurring grants. Private, this happens on an ad hoc basis. So this typically happens when there is a county road that needs some work done and there's a private entity who is interested in seeing that road be improved. So this could happen in the situation recently in Henrietta, where there's a large development going in there and that developer had a certain idea of what needed to happen. And the town of Henrietta and the county worked with that developer to make sure that that road was up to their standards, which was different than what Monroe County was originally planning to do with the additional capacity. I believe that also included some bike lanes and some other things. But those are kind of the typical private sources. There are others, but that's the most often reoccurring. And just to note that when you see above there, the C after the initial county, district, or enterprise, that really just stands for cash. That is operating cash that is coming into that department. Getting into the charts and tables, this will be handy for you as we move forward. The blue bars are the proposed or the adopted CIP from 2030. The red bars are the preliminary or proposed submissions from 2026-2031. Stripe bars represent the aggregated 6-year program totals. Colors correspond as well. Revised funding is shown with red numbers if it's above funding or if funding decrease, and green numbers if the funding increase. That is in retrospect to last year's CIP. And then you'll see some red arrows throughout this program as well that indicate a project either shifted forward or backwards in the program. I will remind you that this is a tool. The main year that we are focused on for spending is the budget year, which in this situation is 2026, the upcoming year. Those years 2027 to 2031 are really meant to help us understand what may be our spending needs as we move forward and we shift as priorities and needs arise through the program. And also to note, italicized projects are new. So those are projects that are brand new to the CIP, typically in the out year, but every now and then there's a project of importance that jumps up into the front or the middle of the program as well. I'll highlight those when I see them. So this is the review of annual funds by source. So this is from 2026 and adopted 2530. So what you'll see here, and this is more for people to dig into than reading off all these numbers, but I'll highlight that the CIP from this year compared to last year is $28 million less, which is about a 5% difference of the 6-year program. The budget year is about 1.9% more, which is about a $2 million increase from prior years. So this highlights the same thing, but this shows you in some bars here, the 6-year program and also the previous year of 2025. So when the red and blue bars are very close together, that means that the funding hasn't changed dramatically. As you can see here, they relatively mimic each other. There are, of course, differences throughout, but there's no extraordinary differences between one or the other. That means that what we've programmed in the past is still what we are planning to move forward with as we move into this CIP version. I'll note again that last year's CIP was approximately $589 million. This year is $561 million. So this is a what's called a tree map, and this just shows you the different funding sources that we use and how they comprise the whole. So the entire colored area represents 100%. But within that, you can see that there are blue areas, which is the county. That includes county debt, county cash. The red areas are the district funding. The purple is the federal and state grants. And then at the bottom right-hand corner are green, which is enterprise funding. So I'll read off those numbers for you. So county debt is about 36% of the 6-year program. County cash or operating cash is about 14% of the program. District special district charges is about 24% of the program. District cash is 6%. Aids and grants, so we have federal at 8%, state at 5%, enterprise fees at 6%, and then the very tiny little margin on the far right-hand corner is enterprise cash, which is about 1% of the total CIP program. So as we move forward, we will now go into department slides. First couple things you'll see as we move into this are some bar graphs identifying spending per department. One thing to note, those bar graphs will match these funding colors for the most part. They are not perfect matches, but they're close enough for the purposes of our presentation. So as we move forward, we have the 2026-2031 CIP funding sources by department. So this is the entire 6-year program broken out by department by those different funding sources. And so what that shows you is what what departments use those funding sources. So it's hard to read from this, but for those on the line and then for the version that we will send out, you'll see in the middle there is district funding, that's Pure Waters. Blue on the bottom there represents, and mostly towards the right-hand side of this chart, represents county funding. We have purple, which represents the state and federal, and that is mixed throughout, but mostly in aviation and Monroe Community College. One thing to note there, you'll see a pretty even split between MCC. The county pays for 50% and the state pays for 50% of CIP improvements at Monroe Community College. That will be shown in the numbers as well. But let's move into the next graph. So this is that same graph, but it is done with fully stacked columns, so you can see the colors a little bit easier. So representing the same information, but allows you to see kind of the breakout in a slightly easier way, because departments do have variable funding. As you'll see from the prior version, some departments have close to hundreds of millions of dollars of funding, and some have under $1 million in many situations. So this is a little hard to read. This one shows the same thing, but just makes it so that way you can see the colors a little bit more easily. All right, so moving into the next. So this is the 2026 budget year funding sources by department. So what this is the capital budget year that is ideally coming up and will be rolled into the 2026 budget as it's proposed to the Monroe County Legislature. This identifies where the funding sources will come for that first year of this overall program. So you'll see there's a mix of funding sources. All the colors of the different funding areas are still there. We have enterprise, we have district, we have county, we have federal and state grants. There is no private funding in the 2026 year. And then you'll see there's also a few departments that have no projects scheduled for 2026. That's typical. Not every department has a project in every year. It varies based on their need and what they have moving forward. Of note there, you'll see that Seneca Park Zoo and the county clerk's office have no projects in the 2026 CIP. And one other note is the county clerk actually doesn't show in these slides. They have no projects currently allocated in the 2026-2031 CIP. They come in a bit more infrequent than some other departments. They were in the previous version, but that program has wrapped up and is no longer in the out years of 2026-2031. So with that, let's move to another chart that shows you the total funds proposed by department and division. So what this is helping you understand is we have approximately 15 departments that have funding needs in the CIP. Those departments are shown on the screen with the various funding sources. This is by department and division. So Department of Environmental Services has several divisions that have capital improvements. Those are listed individually. So you'll see a division of Pure Waters at 29.8%, Facilities Management at 11.8%, Solid Waste at 3.2%, all from a Department of Environmental Services work. However, they are broken out into their specific department division components. And that is true of all the other as well. We'll see here that we have, let's see, transportation. They have traffic engineering at 2.7%. Department of Transportation, Highways and Bridges, 13.7%. So this is good if you want to know exactly how divisions are making up the larger component of the CIP. This next slide is slightly more helpful in that what we have done is identified it by program area. And these are loose program area definitions that can change as we work through the CIP program. What we've done is broken them down into waste and recovery infrastructure. So that is both Pure Waters and solid waste, which represents about 33% of the total CIP 6-year program. Parks, county parks and Seneca Park Zoo is approximately 2.5% of the total program. Transportation, which includes highway and bridges, traffic engineering, and aviation, is approximately 25% or 1/4 of the entire CIP. Public safety, which includes the medical examiner's office, sheriff's office, public safety, represents about 12.5% of the CIP. And then these last two categories are slightly loose because they're not as easy to categorize, but we have public facing services. So think of these as entities where people go into them They may be getting education at Monroe Community College, healthcare at Monroe Community Hospital, picking up a book or DVD at the library. And so those represent 11.9% of the total CIP program. And lastly, a very loose category once again, which is county government assets. So this includes the buildings we're sitting in, so engineering and facilities management, and then the Department of Information Services, the IT infrastructure that makes county government run. So most of these are internal to the operations of county government. However, there are also places where people go to access services. They provide resources that people can access online. So it's a loose definition, but they are both the outward facing and inward facing services that represent the business of government, so to speak. And that represents about 15% of the total CIP. So you can see that the range is quite different depending on what the focus area is. And as a county, we do a lot. And so there's a lot of different focuses that we undertake. And I'll note that the CIP is, once again, just for physical buildings and things. This does not account for the total operating budget of Monroe County. That pie chart would look very different than this based on the services we provide. So let's get into departments specifically, and I'll highlight some things worth noting. Department of Information Services, no new programs or projects in this cycle. They are a relatively steady department. They know what they need most years, and so then their funding needs to change accordingly. One thing you'll see on this is that they have adjusted their funding, red and green. As you can see, there's a lot all across the board. That means that they identified ways to either shift funding around, increase funding, or decrease funding. Overall, there's a $1.7 million decrease in information services over the 6-year program. The Board of Elections is the next department, pretty static as well. They have a $2 million project for voting equipment in 2026. Nothing in the out years, at least at this point. Voting equipment reoccurs on a pretty regular basis. Their refresh cycles for that technology varies, but it's they're looking at between 5 and 10 years. So naturally, the next program will probably come after the 2031 cycle. So the next program is the Health Department Medical Examiner. So we see some changes here as well. They moved from some funding from 2028 to 2029 for the toxicology lab equipment. They have done that, and then there's also some funding that has changed, increased in 2030. Overall, they had a $90,000 reduction in their 6-year CIP. They move into Monroe Community College. So a lot of programs to look at here, but I'll call attention to specific new programs that I'd like to highlight. And so we have Campus Gateway Improvements is one of the newer, and you'll see with MCC, they have 2 new projects, Reorganized Front Drop-Off, and then the Campus Gateway Improvements. Both of those are efforts that were identified in their last comprehensive master plan for Monroe Community College. They identified the need to remedy the way visitors and students access their buildings and the entire facility. So they're looking at making some changes to how people drop off, using that in conjunction with currently ongoing work to make an easier drop-off point, better gateway, so that way people who are visiting campus know which exit to go into, so that way they don't get lost as they're moving. And then also make it easier for students to find the appropriate services they need rather than having to go into one building and walk halfway across the campus. So those are some new programs programs that they've identified for 2031. And I do apologize, I know I'm moving fast, but we've got a lot to cover. So moving on to Monroe Community Hospital. So we have no new projects in the MCH program. They made multiple adjustments to their timing, shifting around as they needed. They recognized some savings from last year's programs and then identified ways to use that or move the funding around. And they have an overall decrease of about $2.6 million in their program. Monroe County Library System. So we have a minor shift, funds from 2028 to 2029 for the Monroe County Library System fleet replacement. For those of you who still like to get a paper book out of the library, like myself, you can return it to any library in Monroe County and it will find its way home to its home library. Those those vehicles that are used to do that, to shift those books around, need to be replaced every now and then because we do have voracious readers in Monroe County. All right. Department of Aviation. So this is a large program. One of the things to note about the aviation department is they are an enterprise funded department, but also a state and federal funded department. So there is a cost share between the states and the feds, and Monroe County does not actually pay anything for most of those projects. It is enterprise, so user fees, people using the airport, things like that, state funding and federal funding. And so I'll call your attention to some new projects. There are no new projects, that's right. No new projects for aviation this year. They shifted some funding around. They have an overall increase of about $4 million. That increase gets them to about $47 million in the 6-year program. One other thing to note about aviation, their program does shift pretty significantly throughout the years because of the way the state and federal program works for funding them. Certain priorities that the state identifies will become priorities for the local airport. So projects that they've planned that maybe in the out years may jump to the front as the state says, we'd like to fund this one this year because we believe it's a priority. Often safety related issues that are either passed down through the federal government or decided through the state. Division of Pure Waters, and I'm going to slide through this. There we go. Whoop, one more. So Division of Pure Waters, I mentioned this is quite a large program. If you remember from the earlier charts, it's generally the single largest monetary impact to the CIP. Once again, this is a district-funded program, though. User fees pay for everything that is happening within those districts. New projects that I'd like to draw your attention to are towards the end there, as we'd like to see in the 6-year program. So we have the Northwest Quadrant Pure Waters District Water Resources Recovery Facility Secondary Clarifiers. That is a project to, if I recall correctly, they need to update some of the materials going in there. Security updates at both the Northwest Quadrant Pure Waters District and then the Rochester Pure Waters District. As you can imagine, facilities that provide resources to a large segment of the population can be targets. And so they're trying to make sure that is not an issue that we have to worry about. So there's some security upgrades going into that. And they're working with both our public safety and the sheriff's office to make sure that those are security upgrades that will be lasting. And lastly, we have a holding tank cover replacement. It is as simple as it sounds. There is a large holding tank that needs a new cover to make sure that the things that are inside of it don't go to the outside. And that is scheduled for 2031, and that's approximately a $1 million project. They have an overall project total of $167 million. Once again, that is district funded, so user fees pay for that, for those changes and for those upgrades. Engineering, oh, go ahead.
Yep, so there's one more new project on the previous sheet. It's biosolids.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the biosolids. So biosolids project, thank you, Chairman Santos. So this is as you can all imagine, certain things make their way into the sewer system. And as we are treating the water, there is a machine that essentially removes those solids from the water. So that way we can cleanse that water or recover that water to be reused. That machine needs to be updated. And I believe they're also, it's a newer system, so there will be some efficiencies designed into that as well. Thank you, Chairman. Let's move to engineering and facilities management. So we have a couple arrows on this page. So we do have one new project that has jumped to the top of the list. It's the medical examiner Ames building expansion. So there are additional needs at that building, and they are important enough that they're rising to the top of the CIP. That's approximately a $6 million project. We have some shifting of funds, not from one year to another, but from multiple years to the other. And that is the public safety, utility operations, communications, fiber optic improvements. And so that is moving some money from 2028 to 2031 and shifting those funds down in the earlier years. We also have one other project that moved in, which is the Hall of Justice courtroom improvements. That has been in this CIP for a few years and is moving up to 2026. And so we have Westfall building reconstruction. We have a building down in right along the canal there, a Westfall building that needs some work, and we are moving that back a little bit from 2028 to 2031. All right, and let's move to, oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry. What was the reason for those movements?
Westfall?
Yeah, Westfall.
We don't have a full understanding of what our goals yet, so we want to buy
Right.
ourselves a little more time to make
Sure.
sure that we know what we're doing before we start spending any funds.
Understood.
All right, moving to solid waste. So, solid waste, what we have here, one new program that I'd like to draw your attention to, which is solid waste heavy equipment. It is, very much what you would expect. There are materials that need to be moved around at our solid waste division. And we need a new front loader and a tub grinder, which is a fancy machine that makes, big things become smaller, so that way they can fit in the landfill easier. As you can imagine, that is quite a costly, machine. And so that is a $1.5 million project between the two equipment for 2026. Overall, they have a total program of about $17 million, which is going up by about $6 million related to another project, which is the Florida Drive landfill improvements. There's a facility that Monroe County is responsible for that needs to be capped and contained in a different way than it currently is. And so that $9 million is accounting for that. We'll move on to the Department of Parks. So you'll see on this front page here, lots of changing colors. Once again, the departments worked on identifying cost savings where possible, moving money out, or identifying projects that could be reduced from year to year. So departments took a hard look and they identified those changes. Nothing specifically to note on this page. One thing I would like to note is there is a new project in 2031, Ellison Park improvements. That is designed to identify how we handle some flood issues that are currently happening in Ellison Park. As you're all aware, it's right near around a great creek. That creek often has high water issues. There's a couple of shelters that are in the way, which is not a bad thing. A park is a great resource to have in a floodplain, usually lower intensity flooding and recovery from that rather than houses. But there are some effects from that. And so we're going to look at what we could do to make those effects a little bit less of a problem from year to year, because there is significant maintenance and labor involved every time there's a flooding event. And of course, sometimes lost resources for people who have rented the facility and can no longer use it. All right, moving on to the zoo. So the Seneca Park Zoo has a relatively quiet CIP for this 6-year cycle. No new projects, some funding moved around, pushed into 2031, the out years. The total CIP for 2026, 2031 is $2.4 million, which is a $600,000 reduction from the prior years. Highways and bridges. Once again, one of our larger programs in the CIP. Most of us are probably familiar with the roads that we drive on, county roads, local roads, state roads. This accounts for the county roads and some other specific roads that we partner with. And so one thing you'll see here is culvert replacement of other facilities, a list of roads that cover county roads. No new projects on this first slide here. These were planned for most years. Moving into the out years, second page, also no new projects. Third page, no new projects. Mostly reoccurring projects, so bridge preventive maintenance, which was identified in 2031. And then we have some others, like I said, the culvert replacement, which is a reoccurring project. Those are constant needs, constant work is going on there to maintain the system so that we can all get around safely and efficiently. Department of Transportation Traffic Engineering. So moving into this, we have no new projects specifically. And for those who are unfamiliar with traffic engineering, this department oversees all the signals that you see at pretty much every intersection in Monroe County. That includes stop signs, traffic control lights, various signals that you may see on the side of the road for pedestrians to cross, including audible signals as well, which is becoming more and more common around the counties. No new projects, as I mentioned. This represents about $15 million for those projects. And this is a reduction of about $1.6 million from prior years. Department of Public Safety. So Department of Public Safety, we have a overall project total of about $45 million, which is an $18 million increase. That is related to a couple things, but one you'll see towards the out years are two roughly $8 million chunks in 2030, 2031, ideally planned in the right place, and that's for public safety communications radio replacement. And then we also have some new projects for police records management from 2029 to 2031. And so those are new projects moving into the CIP. And moving to Monroe County Office of the Sheriff. So we have a couple new projects right in the middle of the first page here, which is the jail tower general building envelope and site improvements and jail tower HVAC and mechanical, electrical, and plumbing improvements. So those both represent about $2.4 million, or exactly 2.4 each. And so that is going into the interior of the building. There's some masonry and other issues that need to be addressed. And then there's also, of course, HVAC and MEP that is a constant source of need in all buildings. And so they need some work on that as well. And then I believe, yes, there's one more new project that I'd like to draw to your attention, which is the Sheriff's Special Team Equipment Vehicle Replacement. So this is this represents $1.6 million of spending in 2031. This is an operations vehicle that they take to events and other places where they may need to have essentially a command center at that location. And so they have one currently, but they're recognizing the need to replace it in time. So they program that into 2031. Overall program for the Sheriff's Office is $23 million, which is about an $8 million reduction from the prior year. All right, with that, we have for your reference, the Monroe County Water Authority. Board members know this is included in the CIP because they are part of our overall bonding structure. However, they are not a county department. They are a district enterprise as well, separate authority from Monroe County, and make their own decisions. Pretty standard maintenance and operations CIP, hydrant replacement, water main rehabilitation, same with storage facilities, the residential meter replacement and upgrade program, which has been going on for several years, large meter replacement and upgrade program, valve replacement. As you can imagine, like all of this very complex and used system on a daily basis, things just need to be replaced as we use them. Their total program is about $92 million, representing a $3 million increase from prior years. And as I mentioned, that is all from district user fees. And we do have some information regarding Monroe County Water Authority I'll share later based on the last meeting. With that, that is the end of the CIP presentation. I'm happy to take questions. And I just want to remind everyone that we will be taking comments on the CIP from the general public until March 19th. If you do have those comments, please reach out to us either via email to Ethan Lynn or to us at the department by calling 753-2000. Once again, that is March 19th that we're accepting those. We will then aggregate those and share with the planning board so that way they know what the comments are. With that, I'm happy to take questions and slide around to the slides that people are interested in.
Hello, it's Robert Colby. I have a question about the zoo.
Zoo? Yes.
You said you reduced the overall capital budget being reduced over the next 5 or 6 years is the way I heard it. And I know there's a major expansion, but I know that funding's already been approved and is no longer in the CIP. But my question with the major expansion and the addition of the aquatic system that they're putting in there, and with the shark tank and some other additional animal housing, I would think some of that maintenance on the tail end of this report would be increasing, but that stuff doesn't hold up very long, I would think. I was surprised to see the out years reduced.
Legislator Colby, you're right, those numbers haven't changed from last year's CIP, but we did move out the tank replacement to 2031 in recognition that that project still is not complete, so there's no need to worry about maintenance just yet. It is a soft number in the CIP to help us understand the will be need, so that we can understand it. As it moves through the cycle, that number will get refined, so that way we know exactly what we will be doing. And all departments are instructed to revisit all of their programs and sharpen those numbers as they move forward, including accounting for inflation and other issues that might be coming to us from year to year.
I think that number's underestimated at this time, but it is 5 years out, so I'll let it go.
Okay.
Hello. Legislator Barnhart here. Is it okay if I go?
Go ahead, please do.
Okay, thanks. You can hear me okay. This is a question about the jail improvements. For a long time, we've been talking about the mainframe in particular and how it's been deteriorating. I was wondering if the sheriff's department can give us, or another department can give us an update on the status of these much needed improvements to the facility.
Yep, so I will. So even though this is shown in the sheriff's budgetary item, it is something that's managed by Division of Engineering. So we've been having numerous meetings with the sheriff to talk about just a number of issues. Population requirements, programmatic requirements for both health, mental and physical needs from the sheriff, maintenance needs around the facility. So we're still in the process of doing that. We're also evaluating new regulations that are not new necessarily, but regulations that are changing, you know, with time and history and all that. So we're still in the process. We would consider this to be really in the conceptual phase right now. We haven't really accelerated a pass on because we're still trying to define a number of items that are going on with the jail.
Thanks. There was a consultant engaged to review what the needs were and start the process. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yep, that's correct. LaBelle Associates was retained for this project. They've done some statistical analysis on population projections based on past history. I say unfortunately, it was like pre-COVID numbers. So I think we're waiting for things to even out a little bit more, that we can use better data to actually come up with the population projections. So that's why we're not really accelerating this too quickly, because we're still waiting for some information to stabilize a little bit more so we can understand what the needs are.
And then just one final question on this project. I mean, looking at the CIP, you know, through 2031, at this point, and it could change, you're really just trying to keep it going, not do these major improvements during this window.
Correct. That's yet to be identified exactly when and where the project would be put into the CIP. But at this point, based on the information we have, we're ready to make that determination.
Okay, that was really helpful. Thank you. The next question I have about the sheriff's program is just about the body worn camera project. I recently was given the contract for a lot of surveillance equipment from Axon. And the way I'm understanding this is the capital program it's about $15 million over 10 years for this equipment, but it's not all funded through the capital program, but some of it is funded through the capital program, such as the body worn cameras, some portion of those cameras. So the costs that we're seeing in this capital project for the body worn cameras, is that the whole cost of the body worn cameras or just a portion of the cost of the body worn cameras? I hope that made sense.
It's just a portion. This is Jennifer Curley from the Sheriff's Office. It's just a portion of the cost. The other funding for the project is coming from capital or grants, I'm sorry, and then cash capital.
Okay. So over the next, because I mean, this is only for the, 5 years. So when do you expect to have body worn cameras for all deputies? And is that the goal?
Legislator, this is Chief Deputy Fowler. We do not anticipate 100% because 100% is not necessary. For example, the deputies that are assigned to desk jobs, things like that, they would not be issued a camera. That's a very expensive piece of equipment to have that they wouldn't use. So it's about a 95% deployment across the road patrol. We're also looking at expanding that. We do have the body worn cameras in use in the jail. They're a shared resource at the moment. We'll expand that as we can in the future. We're looking for more grant money for that. And then the same process in the courts. So the program is funded with significant money from the New York State grant that we received. And then the remainder of that is out of cash capital. But we did have an original cash capital project in there for our body worn camera program that we were able to suspend for a few years. And then we worked out this program with Bob Franklin in order to fund the rest of the project.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very supportive of the body worn cameras. And just one final question on it. This is the Axon contract, right? Like these are being bought through that contract.
Yes, it is. The majority of that contract is for the body worn cameras, the dash cameras, and the software that supports those two items.
Okay, thank you very much. I indicated I had to drop before, so I just have two other questions. The first is for the Department of Transportation. I notice a lot of the projects say bicycle space will be considered. Can you elaborate on what factors would allow for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to be included in these projects?
Certainly, first of all, there's gotta be enough space in the roadway for that. If we're able to do a road diet where we can, if we have 4 lanes, let's say, we can possibly go down to 3, 1 lane in each direction, center 2-way left turn lane, and then provide for bigger shoulders. Bicycle lanes will be considered in cases like that. We can't always do that though, based on the volume of traffic, because I don't wanna create gridlock either. And then once we determine whether or not we have enough space, we reach out to the towns, because the towns then have to pass parking ordinances restricting parking for those shoulders. So I need town concurrence to be able to put in the bike lanes.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one other question for the Parks Department, and I didn't give a heads up. Is there someone from the Parks Department here?
Here it is, yes.
Okay, great. Legislators, including myself, have received a number of emails from people around the county very interested in multi-use trails. And I know the county is seeking feedback on multi-use trails in some portions of county land. Is that part of this capital program? Could it be added at another time, or is it going to be considered to be funded a different way?
So that would be considered a planning study, so to speak, and that is not allowed through the current definition of a capital project in Monroe County's capital improvement program. So no, those studies are paid out of operating costs through the department.
If you were to build that infrastructure, though, that would be put in this plan at some point.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thank you, legislator. Anyone else? Members, staff, with questions for Patrick? Great. I do have, along those lines, legislators' last question. We do have a public question I'd like to enter into the record. Actually, there's two from the Genesee Regional Off-Road Cyclists. Support for budget allocation to implement Arundequoit Bay area trail improvements. Did you want me to read the summary or the whole email?
To you, but actually I have the copy of the original email to pass around, so.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. I'd like to get it into the record. Is there some way to do that?
Yeah.
Should I read it in then? Okay, so. Okay, great. So, in summary, support allocating future budget dollars to implement the Arundequoit Bay Area Trail User Study recommendations. The study launched in 2024, August, gathered significant community input, highlighting the need for infrastructure, safety, and accessibility improvements. Key concerns include unresolved trail conflicts, incomplete kiosk and online maps, and the need for better park connectivity, particularly along Empire Boulevard. The input asks Monroe County to allocate funding to enhance recreation, promote sustainability, and boost local economic development for the implementation of final engineering recommendations expected in early 2025 for the study. And then the email itself from February 28th, 2025, Dear County Executive Bello, Director Meredith, and Director Elise, I understand that this time of year is busy for the county exec team as you finalize the annual CIP. I strongly support allocating future budget dollars to implement the Arundequoit Bay Area Trail User Study recommendations. launched in August of 2024. This study has provided crucial data on how our community uses these trails, highlighting areas needing improvement. With 971 survey responses and 336 interactive map submissions, the study identifies key opportunities to enhance trail infrastructure, safety, and accessibility. Notably, 20% of respondents reported trail conflicts, reinforcing the need for action. Investing in proper infrastructure will not only improve user experience, but also reduce erosion, lower maintenance costs, and support long-term ecological preservation. Since 2008, the Genesee Regional Off-Road Cyclists have supported the Parks Department in maintaining Irondequoit Bay Park West and Tryon Park, contributing over 14,000 volunteer hours valued at over $300,000 during that time. We are certainly invested in our park system. A pressing issue that must be addressed immediately is the incomplete updates to the kiosk and online map. Without clear or accurate maps, trail users face confusion, impacting safety and accessibility. Prioritizing these updates will ensure visitors can navigate the trails efficiently and prevent unnecessary disruptions, helping to promote sustainable park use. Park connectivity remains a major community concern. Reconnect Rochester emphasizes the need for improved multimodal infrastructure along Empire Boulevard, a vital corridor linking key parks. The 2023 Monroe County Active Transportation Plan stakeholder interview summary also strongly supports park connectivity. Coordinating trail improvements with these initiatives will enhance accessibility, create a seamless outdoor experience, and reduce unmanaged park usage. As final EDR engineering recommendations are expected in early 2025, it is essential that Monroe County allocates the necessary resources to bring these plans to fruition. Investing in our trails enhances recreation, promotes healthier lifestyles, and strengthens economic development by attracting outdoor enthusiasts to local businesses. I strongly encourage you to allow funding for these long overdue improvements in the upcoming budget. Thank you for your leadership in preserving and enhancing our parks and trails. I appreciate your consideration and look forward to seeing these essential updates take shape. Sincerely, Scott Mackay, President, Genesee Regional Off-Road Cyclists, 190 Parkview Drive, Rochester, New York. So that one sounded like trail markings and trail improvements, and that would be parks, or is it?
That would be parks, yeah.
Parks, okay, all right. But some of these are, it sounds like you're connecting parks, right? So it might be a bit of transportation too, right? If there's a trail, like Genesee Transportation Council might have trail grants, things available that we can connect, be along roadways. Like you said, if there's room along a road for a trail, for a bike trail, bike pedestrian crossings, things like that. So, okay. So who can we have respond to Scott?
I'm not sure that I have an appropriate answer.
Yeah.
I will say that, through our CATP or the county's active transportation plan, we work on ways to connect people on a variety of means. We are trying to implement that plan, and we've been so far successful in receiving some grants to move forward with that, and hope that we'll turn those into physical on-the-ground projects, but there's still news to be had there yet.
That sounds like a good response to the latter half, and then the specifics, maybe just some, okay, great. So are you gonna handle that, or you'll work on? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so the second item that came in was also from the Genesee Regional Off-Road Cyclists, Scott Mackay, concerning the environmental issues that are happening within the parks in the Irondequoit Bay area. We have been advocating, I guess this is the summary. No, this is part of his email. All right, we have been advocating for the Glen Haven Creek Stormwater Abatement Project everywhere we can. Town level DPWs, Monroe County Ledge, Color Town Green groups, and the Seth Green TU chapter. because these events are tearing park infrastructure apart at Irondequoit West Bay Park. Eventually, the price for repair will become the price for replacement, which is much more expensive. CIP question. I noticed that the 2026 through 31 CIP plan proposal was recently released, and I'd like to know if Glen Haven Creek project was to appear in the CIP. Would it be described with the words Glen Haven, or would it fall into a more general category like RPWD sea soap tunnel system improvements or something else? By the way, I'm bummed that the word stormwater only occurs 2 times in the 6-year planning document. That was another email from Scott. And then there's no date on that one. Then March 10th, 2025. Hi, Andrew and Steve. Same email? Oh, that was the summary? Okay, great. Okay. That was the summary. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so here's the email. March 10th, 2025. Hi, Andrew and Steve. I'm now the president of Genesee Regional Off-Road Cyclists, nonprofit that helps Monterey County Parks maintain trails. White Bay Park West, Tryon Park, and 4 other trail systems in partnership with the following land managers: New York Department of Environmental Conservation, Town of Victor Parks, Ontario County Parks, and the Nature Conservancy. I've reached out to both of you in the past about our ways our group can advocate for more of the environmental issues that are happening within parks of the I-Bay area, and MC Parks Department seems to have other priorities plus projects of this scope require cross-functional team cooperation. We've been advocating for Glen Haven Creek Stormwater Abatement Project everywhere we can. Town level, I think there's some repeat here. County Ledge, Colortown Green, Seth Green. Eventually, the price for repair will become the price for replacement. First question. I noticed that the CIP proposal was recently released. I'd like to know, and that was the question, the Glen Haven question versus sea soap. Is the Glen Haven Stormwater Creek project in the CIP? And that, I don't think it is, right? Unless it's,
I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna just give you a verbal right now, but we can follow up.
yeah, sure,
Yeah, so
for sure.
essentially, the CISO project to which the reference is made is really for the physical infrastructure of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Drop shafts.
That's
those sorts
right.
of Things.
When
The
you
body
get a
water.
rain event and it overflows
Yeah.
right.
But the body water to which we may overflow into is not really covered under the sea salt stuff, so
Right.
technically, this would not fall under sea salt, so
Right.
if it's a separate project, it should be developed by itself.
Right.
I think the other part is, I think this is in the town of Irondequoit, it's actually the creek
Yeah.
section of the town of Irondequoit.
Yeah,
Sea salt is a Rochester Waters District asset,
right,
which is not covered by the town, and that's a
Right.
town responsibility, or county, depending upon what it is there. So-
yeah,
So the short answer is no sea salt. As
no,
far as creating a separate CIP, I guess we have to look at that and see where that falls.
okay, great. And then second question, over last summer, I noticed drainage work happening on Empire Boulevard at 590 South on-ramp. GIS sewer drainage layers show this area contributes to overflow to Glen Haven Creek. So there's again a concern about Glen Haven Creek here. And it sounds like stormwater flooding in that area. So same question, so.
Right, so with the
Um,
590, that would be a state facility, state stormwater water type thing, Empire Boulevard. I don't know if it's a state or county road, but it's a state, so it's a state issue.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Could you direct me to any resource that could help me understand what the project was about? Thanks and have a great day. Scott McKay, Genesee Regional Road Cyclist. Great, thank you, Mr. McKay, for those questions. And we'll get back to him. Right, so great, appreciate it. Any other comments from the public?
Hey, I have a question. Hey, Pat, can you give that report that the consultant did on the trail use in Irondequoit? Has that been completed?
So, you want me to speak? So, Legislator Colby, thank you for asking. I believe it is in the final stages, but it has not yet been completed. Parks and Planning have been working together on that effort, largely a parks effort. And I know that they're nearing the completion, but I don't know the exact date. So we can check with Parks and figure out when that actually is coming forward.
And I know that about doing a study on Northampton Park. You wouldn't know when they're thinking of starting that, do you?
I do not know, no. We can follow up.
Take that.
Any other questions from the public during this public hearing?
I have a question.
Sure, Millie.
The Colton's Road project, since I'm in Henrietta, I know that there was quite a bit of conversation in Henrietta around that particular project, and I'm just wondering, is there a plan to engage the neighborhood before moving forward with the project so that there's a good understanding?
I'll defer to DOT on that.
Yeah, we have had public meetings already, and we have met with the neighborhood a few times. The Aging Alliance has also done a walkthrough.
Yes.
of the project. After all of that, right now, what we're basically proposing is to put back what's there. And it's based on all the neighborhood comments.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Is that because you already had a sidewalk along the south side of the road, or is that,
Sidewalk
yeah,
is a little under contention because
okay,
of who's going to pay for it.
got it.
So it's basically right now, it's been pulled from the project.
Ah,
It's a strange arrangement there. This is
okay,
a large shoulder.
Yeah, right now it's a travel lane, there's a gutter, and there's an extra path behind the gutter that residents don't want to lose, I guess, basically.
for parking
But it's
and,
not
yes,
ADA
yeah,
compliant, so that's
Sure.
at least a problem, so.
yeah,
We've had a lot of conversations on it, and where we're at right now.
yeah,
Part of
okay,
the issue is related to postal delivery.
Hmm.
Because, all of the mailboxes are along.
in the grass, yeah, right, that's right, rather than in the asphalt,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, and all the postal delivery is with truck instead of by foot, and
Yes.
in that location, so.
got it. Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Great, well, then I'd like to take a motion to close the public comment period on here.
So moved.
Thank you, Orlando,
Second.
and seconded by Mike. But we're gonna leave the public comment period open until 3:19. But this public meeting, this vote is to close the public portion of the meeting. Great. Any comments, questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is and by the way, nice job, Patrick, thank you, yeah. Approval of the March 6th, 2025 meeting minutes. They were emailed to you, and I need a motion for those, please.
So moved.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Millie. Any comments on those corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, minutes are approved. Next up on the agenda is a presentation by Merritt County Sheriff's Office. Would you like to do an introduction, or Yishan?
I think Jennifer, you can probably do that.
Yeah, okay, Jennifer, thank you.
First, thank you for asking us to be here.
Yeah.
I did bring some support over there. I have Chief Deputy Fowler, Superintendent Leone, Captain Bancroft, and Bob Anderson, our Budget Director.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so. Oh, wait.
Yeah. Public portion. maybe.
I know, right?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
She's capable.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Better to have her than.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Okay,
That's good.
all
You're
right,
on.
I'll start.
Yeah.
So this is our project. You can go to the next one. The first one is our sheriff's fleet project. We used to just budget this, but per Bob Franklin, we have moved it into cash capital, and it funds about 25 vehicles per year. The vehicles cost, like a Ford costs today $49,800, and a Dodge is $45,900. Those are some of the options we look at. We have over 300 deployed vehicles, and they're replaced based on usage. the years that are on the vehicle, the maintenance cost and mileage. We tried to incorporate some of our larger vehicles into the project. Sometimes it gets difficult because we will need those patrol vehicles that are used 24 hours a day. Next project is our body worn cameras. We spoke about this already. How we're splitting it between grants and how it was adjusted. So in 10 years, we'll have a balance to negotiate for the next purchase. And the purchase we just did was 320 body worn cameras and 65 dash cameras that are on the patrol vehicles. They are working, but we're waiting on the behind the scenes, the infrastructure in order to deploy them. Like the batteries and
Yeah, I
all
was
that
gonna
stuff.
ask about,
Yeah.
how do you recover the information? Does it connect to the cloud every?
Yeah,
That's the infrastructure that's yet to be finished.
I see.
There's only so many network drops in each building,
Sure,
and the old cameras are using the current network drops, so we have to add some new ones in order to, we'll have a little bit of overlap for a short period.
I see,
Until we get rid of the old equipment.
I see.
But it's all, it sits in a dock and then downloads through the network up into cloud storage.
Okay, via wireless or is it,
No, it's all hardwired.
it's a hardwired
You can
connection.
do wireless, but it's a lot to put on that little SIM card that's in each
Yeah.
device, so
Yeah.
we prefer to do it from the docking station.
I see. And how long do they last?
So this 10-year contract includes a 5-year replacement.
Okay,
So in 5 years, they'll give us new equipment under the same agreement, purchasing agreement. So they last 4 to 5 years with really no issues. It's the technology advancements that you're getting out of the replacements.
sure.
and they do last a shift. So I didn't know if you're asking about the.
Oh,
the
that's a great
shift.
question too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they will last the shift, if
It's
not a little
difficult.
more, but
If you mandated overtime or a double shift, you're not gonna get the full 16 hours out of it.
Ah.
But we have magnetic charging cables in the car.
Yeah.
That if you have to get out quickly, it just separates on its own. So you're driving around and it can slowly trickle charge while you're.
yeah,
driving.
okay.
So they're not being used right now, or they are?
Old cameras are being used right now. This is a new replacement project.
When will they be running?
Well, we're pretty close. We have 2 locations that still need some more network switches we have to have both sets running at one time in order to do the changeover. And then they'll come through and remove all the old equipment. So we're probably about a month away.
Did you say that 320 body worn cameras
Mhm.
would cover about 95% of the road
It's-
patrol?
Yeah, you have to be a little bit flexible with that number, right? Because not the same exact number of people are working in one day compared to the next, but it includes, in our contract, we negotiated above and beyond to be able to share some of those cameras. So for instance, you have to have an individually issued camera. You pay a little bit of extra and they will allow you to share cameras between 2 or 3 people. So things like our Parks and Marine unit, the airport unit, they don't really need one for every person. So we can save just a little bit of money by sharing cameras so that the number fluctuates, but it'll be in the low 90% that we get coverage. The primary purpose is every single dispatch car on the road always has a camera. It's the office people or the special investigators, things like that, that might not have one.
Do the officers take the camera home with them?
Only those people that are authorized to take the patrol car home with them. So for instance, K-9 deputies, things like that. Sometimes the bomb squad, whatever, if they're on a special assignment and we need them to quickly respond, then they would be allowed to, yes.
In a material amount of this program was covered with a state grant.
yes.
Right?
Did the grant come with any, just curious if it came with any criteria that changed the way you're doing things today?
No, they got the whole contract. So they were able to review the contract before we actually signed it. The state did. The program specialist for the state signed everything, so they knew what we were buying.
The state doesn't really put any requirements on what type of body cameras you buy. For transparency, we bought the best we could because there are some basement versions of body cameras that are not reliable. The batteries don't last. They won't stay on your uniform. They'll fall off as soon as you start running.
So
Yeah,
We had
We-
two grants actually, because we had the previous body worn camera grant, which did stipulate we can only spend 1,200 per camera. So I was only able to use a certain amount of that funding, then the rest would be used, the technology grant would fund the rest of it. So there's actually two.
So the, live stream
Yeah.
capability, in
So-
an event, during an event, you
Yeah.
live stream?
A deputy will wear it on their uniform from our operations center that we're building, our REOC operations center. We will have staff at the computers that will be able to see your icon moving across the map, tell where you are. So if we get out of the car and we're in a foot chase, or we're in the woods searching for someone, we might launch the drone overhead. The drone on the computer screen will be able to show Deputy Fowler is walking this way along the creek, and we can call him on the radio, hey, guy, you're in the wrong direction, turn around.
Yeah.
Instead of somebody, whoever's near the creek, wave your hands.
Yeah.
Okay, that's you, you gotta turn around, right?
Is that
It's
GPS?
it is GPS located, yeah. The cameras also are capable of doing, interpreter work. So if I'm talking to you, you're explaining a car accident, but we have a language barrier,
Wow.
I can tap the button on my body camera and ask it to interpret our language. It will listen to you talk. It will tell me in English what you said. I'll give a response and it will translate that back to you. A little bit wonky in the beginning, but they're working out the bugs. Trying to think, oh, and then we can live feed, right? So from that operations center, I can sign into your camera and see what it's showing me. So if for some reason you pull a car over, you're not answering your radio, we're sending people on their way to help you, but we need to know what's going on. I'm gonna log into your camera and it will show me whatever your camera is looking at live.
So does the camera record the entire shift?
It does not. It records only when it is on in the record mode. When it's in a standby mode, power's on, it's in standby, it's not recording, but there's a buffering. So what that buffering does, 30 seconds.
Oh, 30
Yeah, you can change it to, I believe, a minute, maybe a little bit more. But again, that's a lot of storage space you're adding every day, every person, every shift. So when I hit record, it starts recording, but it also has the previous 30 seconds, whatever happened before I hit record. That's that buffering.
Do you dump every day?
We do, you need to.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want any issues of it's still on the camera, now the camera ended up in the river or something like that. We don't want any of that issue.
Yeah.
So our policy says they have to dump it every day.
And that's wired.
The best case is wired. You can do it wirelessly, but it's slow and lengthy. And at the end of your shift, you're wanting to go home and you're sitting there waiting for it to download, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The newer versions that are gonna be streaming, are they connected to a mobile device? And then they're connected to the cell
They're
tower?
connected to the cell tower, but
Okay.
it does connect to the communications box in the trunk of the police car.
Okay,
So it's a redundancy, right?
Okay.
That we can do either or.
oh, I see. That probably saves battery life.
It does, and
Camera.
that box in the trunk is what primarily runs the dash camera.
Okay,
The dash camera forward facing and the rear passenger seat, if we put somebody in the back seat, it records what's going on in the back seat. And of course, all of that has to go through the court system. So every time we record anything of value for prosecution, we have to sit and watch it all and provide it to the prosecutor who has to sit and watch
Right.
it all.
and you're able to record audio,
Yes,
but normal citizens aren't allowed to record audio without permission, right?
in an
So,
open public setting, you could.
yeah, right, but in
private
your
setting,
car,
not.
right,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So how do you get around that? Do you have
So.
a sign saying, hey, you're being recorded?
Well, we're present with them too, right?
Yeah.
We're not gonna leave them alone. So
Right.
We're present with them, so if
Right.
they're saying something, they're saying it in our presence.
To you, yeah, right,
Right,
right.
that's a spontaneous utterance that the district attorney would be very happy to have. probably.
Yeah,
So if you're a party to the conversation, you can record in New
Right.
York State.
gotcha.
Single party state. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
those,
That's great. Our next two projects are the jail, and obviously Sean's here too to answer questions on this. This is for the ongoing maintenance at MCJ. The first one is interior. which is the masonry, structural utilities, life and safety and security systems. And I do have a picture there. When we were walking over, the superintendent said it was actually opened in 1970, but it's I had 62, so that was when the construction started. And the other one was 2003, it said. The next slide is just the envelope and site improvements. Same here, interior improvements for the mechanical, electrical, and the plumbing for this.
Just so people understand, the reason it's two separate jobs, they have different life cycles. So for Bonnie, one's 20 years and one's 15 or something of that nature.
Okay.
That's why there's two
So
separate.
we had to separate them, yeah.
Years ago, you came forward with there was a plan for certain levels, certain floors, there was visitation areas, and is this all part of that?
So the visitation was done.
That was done.
Yeah, that was
Right,
done,
finished.
yeah.
Okay,
The next project is our active shooter firearm and PPE replacement project. This is just all the ballistic gear that we issue to road patrol. It does roll around in the backseat of in the trunk, so it does get beat up a little bit. We will be looking for grants for this as well, but that's what this equipment is for. It's not for our special teams, it's for the road patrol.
Those firearms have a very strict life cycle, and it's based upon the number of times it's used. And each company has a different life cycle for their firearms, so, and that is a very expensive replacement project, which is very difficult to get grant money for. They do not like to pay for firearms themselves.
We did get a PPE grant one year from DCJS, which I think that's where the majority of the helmets and the plate carriers came from.
Okay.
The next project is our marine unit vessel replacement project. So this is kind of like for two vessels. And at the time of this writing, this was this fall, so it could have more engine hours and hull hours on these, but one's a 29-footer, one's a 33-footer. And I think one, we're just gonna do the engines and one is gonna be a complete replacement. The Coast Guard has reduced their staffing, so I think we have currently five boats right now, but.
They're, some of the two of them are very small
Mhm.
for the canal and for things like that, but, three primary vessels for the lake, three primary vessels that are lake worthy, let's put it that way.
and do you respond to, what determines whether you or the Coast Guard responds to a lake emergency?
So we are 911 dispatch, so if the call comes in through 911, it'll come to us. If it comes through a Coast Guard radio frequency, it'll go directly to them, and
Yes.
then they also share it with us. We always
Sure.
share whenever we
Yeah.
have a job, because it
Yeah.
usually takes two.
Yeah.
And we position them, one on the west, Braddock's Bay, one in Irondequoit Bay, one in the river. Sometimes they'll all be in one location, but it's a lot of area to cover.
Yeah.
A lot of area in that lake, so between the
Yeah.
Coast Guard and our three vessels, it's still a lot to cover.
And the state does give us funding. Everyone that has registered boats in the county, they give us a percentage of that money from the registered
Oh,
boats for
okay.
our marine state aid program. So they will give us, that's why the 150 is in there. So they'll
Okay.
give us, I think, 100 for a boat and 50% for the engines, depending on how much they are. So
There's a mutual aid, you help other counties.
Yes, we do. Every year we go to Sodas Point. They have a blow-off day where nobody goes to work and it's a big drunk fest. And we always are out there for that.
Yeah.
We go down to Canisius, we go down to other lakes. Our scuba team will take the boat down there to support them, and they'll come up to help us too.
And you go out, what, 20 miles into the lake, pretty much?
Well, we'll go as far as we need to based upon the fuel. So the limit, I believe it's 20. But we're not gonna stop if we can reach it, and
Yeah.
if it's within reach, we're gonna go. And we do coordinate and communicate with the Canadian Coast Guard. We have shared frequencies, and they will come halfway, and we'll do the best we can. And then we'll get the helicopter out of Detroit to go overhead, and between the three resources, usually everything is covered.
Good.
the next project is the HOJ level with plaza level security. This is not the little tundra or the little area there. It's the one that faces the city PSB. The doors and, they want to upgrade the glass.
Trying to get some bullet
Yeah.
resistant, materials in there because,
Where the mactometers
it's
are.
a significant security concern for us right now. There's a big risk with that building, and we get threats routinely towards judges and staff of the Hall of Justice. We're having discussions right now with the state about offsetting some of this money. So this is, in our mind, this is a little bit of a placeholder just in case that doesn't work out. So far, things are positive about them possibly stepping up to at least help with this project.
The next one is our spec ops building upgrade. Now, this building is located at the fleet facility and it houses all of our special teams. There's a little area that is open and I think they're parking the new truck underneath there and maybe the smaller scuba truck. So it's just an overhang that we want to enclose. To protect the vehicles, that's pretty much it.
We ran into issues this year trying to get that large command truck out to a scene and they had to shovel it out first and it's like 11 feet tall and trying to brush the snow off and everything, but.
Yeah. The next project is our jail records management system. This is how we track and manage all of the incarcerated individuals in the jail. It's a 24-hour application. The last upgrade, I think was in 2019. Yeah. So it's gonna be a complete replacement. We cannot upgrade the current system that they're using. So this is a complete overhaul of that system.
What does that entail? Just like
It's everything, the
transferring
medical.
all the
oh.
databases over, basically.
Yeah, there probably will be.
I will be tell that as well.
Yeah.
That'll still be captured,
Okay,
but it's tracking everything.
Mhm.
Required. the state
Medical.
Requires us to have a minimum number of X, Y, and Z with the incarcerated individuals, all that's logged in here, it's all historically logged. And we can use it to collect data, we can use it on reports, it's a very large system.
Yeah, out of curiosity, what's the need, what's driving the need for updating it?
There's shelf life on these.
Yeah,
Last very long.
the vendor
Five,
won't
6, 7
support it
years.
after a while.
There's like an iPhone, your iPhone 4, and then there's product that won't work anymore on the product, and it forces you out of there.
We also, not just for the jail, but we're running into issues with the Windows 11 upgrade.
Yeah.
Also that it's hitting everything and the deadline is almost here and all of our legacy systems are, some of them won't work.
But this is not just an upgrade, though, this is a whole complete replacement of the
Yeah.
system.
Mhm.
Same vendor or totally?
We don't know. We'll have to probably go out to bid or if there's someone on contract. Yeah, they're looking at it now. The next project is also for the jail and the courts. It's the radio. It's same thing. The infrastructure, everything behind it, the recording system. And because it's 4 buildings, it's very difficult. And they need to have transmission between 2 to 3 miles around those buildings as well. So.
Did,
and
at
there's-
one point in time, decades back, you had some dead spots in there. Have we addressed those with repeaters and, okay, good.
But this is also in coordination, communicating with other agencies as well, our transport bureau or anybody outside doing a perimeter check.
Sure.
Peer, our PD, as well as our counterparts of the road patrol and any other agencies in towns, west of it.
There was a change in radio, legacy versus, is that part of this
So
as well, or?
that will help bridge that gap, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the police radios, public safety manages
Right.
for the county, so that we're all on the same system.
Yeah.
But they don't cover the jail and the courts, so
Right.
they're still on their legacy system. So this is gonna upgrade them and bring them compatible to all the road patrol.
Okay, great.
And then our last and final new project is our big special team equipment vehicle. This is the one he was trying to get out. I did not have a finished, it does have writing on it now, but this was the picture I found from EBI.
The 2006 is incorrect. That's my mistake. I was referring to a different truck. The one that would be due for replacement in 2031 is a 2022 brand that we received in 2023. So the hope is we could push that to the right a little bit, but right now it's a placeholder.
And this, handles, command
Our
operations,
command.
long commands, okay.
We can dispatch from there, we can, communicate with the EOC, we can communicate with the operations center.
The front
Very
has,
helpful during the bus crash on 490 and Brighton's triple homicide, the inclement weather situation, it's very helpful, and it's equipped with all the technology that we need.
Is it similar, or do you go to similar vendors as the EOC vehicle, the
Yep.
command center, and
We
the,
do,
you
and it-
kind of,
you kind of park them near each other,
Right.
and then one truck will be used for a specific focus.
Okay.
Another truck will be used to house these people that are doing just a little bit different.
Right.
Thing,
yeah, okay,
yeah. And they back each other up. If one's out for maintenance, then they can
Okay.
support each other.
okay.
You have one of these in total?
Yes.
Any other,
that's the last project. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, just quickly, maintenance, does the county do its own maintenance or do you,
On the vehicles?
yes?
Yes.
We have our own fleet employees of mechanics that work right next to DES mechanics. Share a little bit of space, a little bit of things, but, we do limit who can touch the police vehicles.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think we're at 6 mechanics right now, and they're very busy.
So that's adequate for, not quite adequate.
uh,
They
Meets the
do
need.
everything, we're very strict with our oil changes, our brake pads, all that routine maintenance.
Yeah.
We're very strict on, but they also do things such as run the wiring for the roof lights. The dash cameras, they install the dash cameras, they install the push bumpers, the fire extinguishers, everything that we have in there, they do for us. And the biggest thing they accomplish for us is struggle with the vehicle manufacturers. Because that's just a never ending fight, and the price increases and look, this is under warranty, oh no, it's not, oh yes, it is. All that sort of stuff they do every day.
okay,
No, is that the same with the marine units?
It is, they actually, they will help us with the vessels. We do have to contract with an actual marina to do engine repairs and things like that. And unfortunately, we have to go to Wayne County for that right now because there's nobody available here that can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could just clarify the body worn cameras, there are 2 platforms.
Yeah.
Discussions we were having were the newest platform that will be going out. The other platform are the older cameras, just. Or we have a bunch of those, I just don't want to confuse anybody.
right, and you have to transfer,
A lot of the
At one
capabilities
point,
are not
right?
the same.
Yeah, we're currently using the same.
and or hold, yeah,
We're currently using the same platform. The road patrol is about to go to the new platform.
Right.
but The jail is still on the old.
right,
That's
okay,
another project yet to be undertaken. So
I see,
The prices, they know they've got us, that we have to
Sure.
have these body cameras, and the price is just through the roof.
yeah,
Storage of data is enormous
yeah,
On their cloud?
on their cloud. Well, but they offer it to you for free if you buy the camera. The camera's 4 times as much as everybody else's camera. It doesn't charge for storage.
yeah, so you're paying for it one way or
They know
another,
they've
yeah,
got you. You can't, once you wear a body camera, you can't get rid of it. You have to have it forever after that.
yeah. The number of employees in the jail versus on road patrol is smaller, It's double?
Yeah, they have
Double.
much more.
wow, okay. So that,
What's your population count's almost 800, right?
Just shy of
800,
lot of-
and it holds
a lot of it.
1,200 or something like that?
it.
It holds like 1,200 or 1,300, yeah. So at one point, we were
We
walking
were over
through them,
it, yeah.
yeah,
Double up.
and
It
then,
was over.
and then another point, you were down at 400 or something, at what, 400 or 500, yeah,
Starting to count around 7, just shy of 17.
yeah. So we're at 800 or something, okay.
And now with the state corrections issue, even though there's a resolution in place, they're still not taking their sentenced inmates. So
State
they're,
ready.
all of those people that are supposed to go to state
Stay.
are now with him,
Mhm.
waiting until the state can start taking them again.
Gotcha. Yeah, they don't have enough shift
Yeah.
coverage right now, so, yeah. Just off topic, that's a tangent, but how long do they suspect that their shift coverage will catch up? So that everything will be normal, back to normal?
Meeting from March 17th and now pushed back to the 31st. My experience just listening and watching.
A month or two, it's gonna be, or more, yeah, you don't, yeah.
By 2000 employees.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
It's fire 2000, there's no quick.
And that academy is 6 months, right? Yeah, yeah, because the academy is 6 months, right? And then you have to find the people, you have to get them in the pipeline, right? Yeah, okay, so you're talking a year at least to get, and you don't get 2,000 in a year. So now you're like, okay, how many do you get in a year? Anyway, it's a different topic, okay. Any other questions for the sheriff's office?
On that same topic, how many inmates are we housing that normally, under normal conditions with the state, would be transferred to the state facilities by now? How many inmates are we housing because of the pushback or the lack of ability for them to have?
800, right?
Legislator, we had, as of this morning, 78, it should have been in state docs.
70?
78.
78.
78.
Okay. But they reimburse those, right?
I'm sorry.
Say what?
They reimburse them.
Reimburse us for housing them on a per day basis?
After the 10 days, if they don't accept them after 10 days, they have to start reimbursement. Previous legislation came out.
Oh,
Okay, here's a question. Is their reimbursement rate a fair rate for what it costs us to house them?
Is it fair?
No,
How much, is it short? Half, quarter? Percentage?
I would guess that the last class they sent out for Texas, we did a study, it's roughly $324 an inmate. So that's 100, so we're down $234 short.
so it's a 100, they give us 100, Bob, and then it's 324 is what it should be.
So $200 per day for that 78 inmates, we're picking up the tab, the county taxpayers, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And that number fluctuates based on the staffing, overtime needs, the cost of
Sure.
everything associated, medical care.
Okay.
There's a formula that we utilize and it's, everything goes into the formula.
thanks for that information.
Great questions. Thank you, legislator. Any more?
Separate question, do you still have a superintendent in the jail?
Yep, that's him.
Chris DeBruin?
Before I started, the room was 89.
We never wore uniform.
Superintendent Squires did either, Superintendent Ron Howard started roughly late 90s.
More questions? For the sheriff's office?
So just to clarify, it's about $15,000 a day that we're covering for the state line.
I
Based
do the
on that.
math, but,
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
That's, yeah,
That's,
right.
yeah. Thank you.
again, that's 324.
It can fluctuate, sure,
Yeah.
The only
but
reason I know that number is because when I send individuals for our staff to advance that to Texas, they ask us how much it costs to us. Every basis.
And that number is not normally that high. It's only that high now because of the situation the state's in, correct?
That's correct. The number is never that high when so there's a pipeline and that number includes the parolees that are going through their parole process as well that are being remanded back to the docks. So there's a pipeline, I know, 105 individuals that I currently have between parole and state, convicted state. I know that 78 of them are within that 10-day range that have been reported to the state and should have taken them. So typically when they get sentenced, there's a process that takes place.
that document gets signed, and then from 10 days out, my transport staff drops them off to one of the reception units. And they never say no. Well, didn't say no, over, they said no a bunch of times, but currently they are not accepting any transfers.
This isn't really related to the capital budget, but what budget line item are we eating up funding extra costs?
My overtime.
Oh, great.
Hmm.
And I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but he's been on it, he's been every day checking the status at his jail. And meeting with the security across the street as well, so he's been monitoring on a regular basis.
Great. Any others for the sheriff's office? Thank you for coming in. Great presentation. Thank you. Great questions, everyone. And great information. The next item is, we're going to talk about the priority vote and those instructions that you're going to get, right? So who wants to handle that? Ishan or Pat? Okay.
Also have some follow-up responses from your questions from last week regarding,
Oh, the water authority, right?
as well.
Okay, great.
So
What do you want to handle
a
those?
little bit longer, let's do the priority vote first.
Okay,
That way we can, ask questions about that.
sure.
We will open up the system. We have not yet. But he's going to bring up a typical ballot. It looks pretty much the same on the online system. Each of you will have access to an individual ballot for yourself, or for your alternate designee. And so what you can do is go in, you review each project, you have the materials, you can take a look and understand what's going on. You see the estimated budget, per year, or I'm sorry, for the 2026 year, but based on the funding stream. And then on the left-hand side, there is a column that you can use to put a number from 1 to 5. If you see up at the top there, 1 is high priority, 2 is medium high, 3 is medium, 4 is medium low, 5 is low priority. We do not instruct you on what your priority should be. Use your life experiences and knowledge from these presentations to make those determinations. I know other counties do have kind of a metrics that they try to give to their boards. But for us, we let you pick what is important to you. And so you will go through there, hit 1 through 5. There's no, Chairman Santos will remind you that if you do all of one number, your numbers won't come out very good. Essentially, you're not prioritizing anything in that situation. So we wouldn't recommend doing that, but you could if you wanted to. But I would imagine you'll fail the test. So to his point, take some time, figure out the 1s, the 5s, and everything in between that you think is appropriate. If you're not able to use the digital system online, we're happy to either send you a PDF via email or hard copy. If you want, I can print them out before you leave so you can take them away. I have a couple sitting on the computer, on the printer upstairs that I forgot to bring down, but I can run up and grab them. So it's really that simple. If you do have any questions or have any problems accessing them, please reach out to Ishan and myself. We can get you access. And in the worst case scenario, we can put the numbers in for you over the phone. We've had to do that in years past when people are on vacation in places without good Wi-Fi. So that's the priority budget vote. Any questions on that before we move on to the other questions from last week?
When did you say it'll be available?
Sorry, I will open it now, after this meeting, and then we'd like to get it together for the 20th. I can pull it together pretty quick if everything's online. So we should probably set the 19th as the date.
Yeah.
More than enough time for me to pull that together. It's a simple Excel metric, so it's not a big deal.
Patrick, just to clarify, you want 1 per voting member or?
1 per voting
Okay.
member, and some voting members have their alternates, who are here more often, vote for them.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that is an option.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
But yeah, each vote represents a seat on the planning board.
Yeah. Great. No
Okay.
more questions about other business? We'll go to more CIP.
Yeah, so we
Questions?
wanted to separate the public hearing from your questions from last week. And so we have a few slides to show you. So first of all, you had some questions from Monroe County Water Authority. We emailed them and they got back to us. First of all, this is their service area. And what you can't see for those of us in the back is that blue in the middle represents Lake Ontario water that is being pumped to the communities in blue. So most of Monroe County, with the exception of the southeast. And then you'll see that includes some portions of Wayne, Orleans, Genesee, and a tiny bit of Livingston County as well. For those of you in the Rochester, Brighton area, you'll see that you're getting, Brighton, and then Henrietta, Rush, Mendon, you're getting Hemlock Lake water. For those of us in the city or Pittsford, Victor, Farmington, you're getting a combination of Lake Ontario and Hemlock Lake. And then further to the west, we have Lake Ontario and Batavia, representing the communities around the city of Batavia, which has its own water source or situation. And then on the far left side, we have a well in Corfu, and then also some Lake Erie water being piped over from Erie County as well. So all those systems are interconnected to make sure that no one runs out of water. I'm sure you're familiar with the situation that happened in the city of Rochester a few years ago. And so that the Highland Park Reservoir was taken out of commission for a while, cleaned. No one ran out of water, but we of course couldn't use the water, but no one ran out because we had other resources to tap into and share. So that's an overall picture of what's going on, because you did ask kind of what's going on. And then they had some, if we can go to the next slide, Ishan.
I can do it.
So we asked specifically what is the percentage wise of water that we are getting in Monroe County. So as we kind of indicated by that map, Monroe County Water Authority supplies all of Monroe County with the exception of the city of Rochester. Approximately 15% of the water produced at Monroe County Water Authority's facilities go to communities outside Monroe County. You also asked about, how are we doing on water quality? Passed around to you, and this is above my intellectual abilities, is the Monroe County Water Quality Summary Table. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in that, but what you can see there is the various things that have been tested for, the contamination levels that are acceptable, and what our limits came in as. And then they also explain where that likely came from. And then also on the far right column, you'll see, is there a water quality violation? Some of these are actual violations in terms of they will create a problem, others are just preferences. But you'll see that there's a no for all of those, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, this is above my abilities to explain to you all of these details. But they detect for various chemicals, turbidity, which is just the clarity of the water, microbes that may be in the water, what disinfectant agents are in the water that we use on purpose and what those levels are. Because of course we want to have a level that makes the water clean and healthy to drink, but not so high that it creates a problem. And then they're also testing for lead and copper, which are typically from the conveyance system to your house. That can vary based on where you live, what that's made out of. But those are also tested as well, and often based on, like I said, your individual circumstances of your neighborhood or your house. But that's about it. I don't know if I can answer any questions on that. There's also more information available on their website via that link. So you can get a little bit more of a synopsis of what each of these chemicals are, what the concerns are, and then the overall situation. And then I just attached on the far right-hand side some statistics that they shared with me as well. So from Lake Ontario, we are withdrawing 52.9 million gallons per day. I was hoping to give you some sort of fun facts about what that indicates, but I ran out of time. Average system use is 57.1 million gallons per day. Non-billable water, so things like firefighting, flushing, maintenance leaks, and flushing is flushing of the pipes, not flushing of the toilet. That's 7.75 million gallons. Average residential cost is $341.9 million or $341.9 dollars. As if any of you have lived elsewhere, that is it is extremely cheap. If you're in other places of the country, you're paying a lot more for water. What we pay per year, they are paying per quarter.
Wow.
Population served, nearly 1,793,000. Number of accounts, 190,000. Miles of water mains, 3,450. Number of fire hydrants, 27,514. So that is what I can provide to you about Monroe County Water Authority, if there's anything else you'd like to know, we can send them some more questions.
Just my overall question was, from a capacity standpoint, how are we doing? Like Shoremont is running at, that's at 90%, but the Webster plant is only at 1/3 or something like that. Do we have, if we have an issue like the reservoir,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, do we have
I did not
backup
ask that
and,
question, so let me get back to them
Yeah.
and see if it's in any of the materials they did share.
Okay.
They shared some materials for me to reference,
yeah,
but I can do that at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Just
Or
from
send
a-
it through email.
from a planning emergency planning standpoint, that's all. And then how long to go before we have to, renovate some of these plants, so I know they're constantly replacing valves and things like that. You see it in the program, so,
Yep.
but,
I'll reach
so
out.
those
and
two things, just lifespan and capacity.
Will do.
Yeah.
Apologies for not getting that last.
No,
time.
no, that's all right. And it's not really our purview, but I just want to ask the question so they're thinking of it too, so,
Okay.
yeah. If
So-
if we get it 2-3 months from now, it's not
And the county Pure Waters interacts with them because water consumption is how we bill individuals for sewer use, right?
oh, right,
Yeah, water comes in, water goes out, but there's
Yeah.
extraneous water we talked about before, groundwater, ionized,
Yeah.
stormwater in the city, those types of things.
yeah,
Or big industrial users, if water goes into a product, they can put it in a credit meter.
Yep.
So they take 1,000 gallons in, 500 goes into the sewer, but 500 goes into their product, they can put a credit meter in and just be charged
wow,
500 instead of 1,000.
wow,
That kind
okay,
of stuff that goes on.
yeah, wow,
And talking about computers, the city of Rochester is still working on DOS. Their operating system for their water system is DOS, believe it or not.
wow,
Yeah.
okay,
There you go. And another interesting fact, so the city of Rochester is based on gravity, because it all comes from Hemlock
Right.
Lake,
right,
right? And
Yeah.
the water authority is pumped.
oh, yeah,
As it comes in from the lake.
completely
Yeah.
pumped, yeah,
So it's
everything,
nice to have that combination of gravity and pump.
right, it is.
system. Yeah.
Do you know if the city of Rochester still has that old wooden pipe? There were sections of wood that were from
Yeah, a lot of
Hemlock.
that's been replaced, and actually, a lot of it's riveted steel. It was
Okay,
installed back in the,
okay,
late 18 and early 1900s,
Yeah.
yeah. You come down through farmlands and all that.
right,
And if you go down east or west Henrietta Road, you'll see some hydrants on the side that are colored black. Those will be blow offs, and black is the universal color for hydrant that's not used for fire protection. So
yeah,
if you ever see that, that's what those, I think, I was on a
Okay.
service ring.
okay,
Yeah, so there's been, I know this because I work for the consultant that did it, number of projects to renovate those, replace
Yeah.
the pipe, reline them, or do stuff of that nature.
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for the information. So that was that one, and then,
Yep, so you also asked about inflation.
Right.
So I put together a couple of different charts, and I do apologize, it might be a little hard to read. But what we did is pull the readily available information from 2007 until present. And what I mean by readily available, that is what we have electronic records of.
yeah, that's
Everything
fine.
before that is
Yeah.
paper that I did not have the time to go.
Right.
But I think that gives us a good snapshot
Right.
of essentially, just before the recession of 2008
Yeah.
until now. So the blue numbers represent, the original raw dollars for the CIP years over that period of time. And this is the 6-year cycle. So these numbers are large. They range from, 554 million in 2007 to, nearly 589 million in, 2025. The gray bars that are just adjacent to them but go much higher represent the past numbers adjusted into today's dollars. So those are 2005 numbers in gray. And so what you're seeing there, and before I get into them, actually, I'll give you 2 other things. Far left-hand side, and Ethan, can you zoom in a little bit for us? We do have a couple print copies we can share if anyone wants to dig in. Here's one. I know she's got a couple down there. But the far left-hand side is the averages. And what I did is both a 10-year most recent average and a 20-year average, which represents the entire time frame.
Okay,
And so the total average in raw dollars is $441 million. The total average in adjusted to 2025 numbers is $574 million. The 10-year average in raw dollars is $442 million. And the, adjusted for inflation, 10-year average is $520 million. So, and I also put some trend lines in here because one of the questions was, what's kind of the trend?
Yeah.
And you can see in raw dollars, it fluctuates from year to year, but it really has kind of stayed in that $500 or so range. There's been some low years, there's been some higher years. If you adjust for inflation, you can see that the amount of money we spent in 2007 was nearly $853 million. If you were purchasing the same things today or the same amount of projects. And so you can see that in some ways, our CIP program has actually lessened in many ways.
Yeah.
I know that Finance and I had a conversation about, does that mean we're doing less or are we doing things differently? And Joe, please jump in if you want, but we don't necessarily think we're doing less. Maybe there's some efficiencies we've gained over time. We address projects as they come up and as they're needed. And of course, in 2007, those were the heady days before the recession. Things were very good in Monroe County and across the country. There was then a lag, and that's kind of why you see the numbers start to fall, but not really crater until 2011. And if you remember from doing our program, we do it a year before, so that actually represents 2010. So each year is kind of a year back. And so I think we really see the effects of the recession in 2008, probably in 2009, 2010, depending on how you want to look at it. Any questions on this? I know it's complicated and it's not hard to see from that screen, but this is kind of showing that things fluctuate. In many ways, we've kind of curtailed we've lessened our CIP spending over time. That's as much as I can pull out for you without more metrics.
That was useful.
And I have some more. That's just the 6-year cycle.
Okay.
This is the capital budget year. So this is just the first year of each program, that you'll be voting on priority wise. So this is similar numbers, just smaller. So these lines kind of mirror the same thing, but you can see there's some ebbs and flows. We have a high of $149 million in 2008 to a low of $60 million in 2015 in raw numbers. And then adjusted for inflation, we have a high of $220 million to about $80 million, which is pretty on par with where we are today. Once again, the averages are on the far left. So I'll give you the 20-year average, $93 million in inflation adjusted dollars, $77 million in raw dollars.
Yeah.
The 10-year average is $89 million in inflation dollars and 77 in raw dollars. And you can see once again, it fluctuates, but that actually comes a little bit closer. And of course, towards the end, the numbers are very close because those years have less inflation going on.
This is a great chart, especially the grays. The upper numbers it just tells you that whether you're out of whack or not, or is there some major project that like in 2008, there was probably downtown MCC or something like that, it was a big project that came along. So
I didn't have time to do exactly that.
No, that's okay.
And maybe next year we will.
And there's some drop due to cash capital, things going cat and you're refining those rules. So no, this is handy. Thank you.
And then the last one we have is the debt service. So this one, same kind of concept. Blue is the raw numbers, gray is inflation numbers, averages on the far left side. So total 20-year average in debt service is 46 million raw dollars, 60 million in inflation adjusted, 58 million in inflation adjusted numbers. The most recent 10-year average is 51 in raw numbers and 60 million in inflation adjusted dollars. And then you see this graph is a little different. So you see it picks up towards the right-hand side, the more recent years. And so that is showing that our debt service has gone up in recent years.
Yeah.
And so there's a variety of factors for that, but it is related to what you were just talking about, Chairman Santos, of how we're allocating dollars in the CIP to spend them.
I mean, but for the most part, it looks like it's 60, adjusted for inflation, you're on the 60 line all the way across, minus some a few years here and there,
Yeah.
but okay, it's good to,
And
That's
we'll,
good
of
to
course,
see.
email these out to the board so they can
Great.
review these in detail.
so all these slides will get,
Yes,
yeah, okay, great. Like you moved that.
and I do apologize for not having printed copies for everyone. I finished these
You want?
10 minutes before the meeting.
I'll take electronic copy.
Happy here too.
This was great, Pat, so thank you very much. Two quick follow-up questions, and this is in no way creating more homework for next week. Would you say the footprint of the county's assets have changed one way or the other, over this same time period?
Well, so I was gonna actually make the comment about,
Time to go home.
all right.
Meeting's over. Till next week.
Yeah. Right, so there's ongoing maintenance activities that happen versus like new initiatives, right? So the
Yeah.
tropics at the zoo is a new initiative, so the footprint increases because of that.
Yeah,
This building is increased, it used to be leased, now we
Yeah,
own it. so
right,
that
now you own it.
increases.
Yeah.
691 is a leased building, we're looking to determine what we're gonna do with that, either buy it or go to a different building or something like that.
right,
So the short answer is yes, the assets have increased a little
Yeah.
bit over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and we've adjusted that with staffing and everything else that goes along with it.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, and then to the point about the cash capital, right, so if we put in, like say in the Pure Water District, 2.5 million. Unfortunately, it's been 2.5 million straight, which means as inflation goes up, we're spending less. Fixing less stuff because we're not
Yeah.
increasing the amount.
right,
And Bob Franklin and Joe. Kind of allowed us, we're starting to increase those a little bit more to maybe make up a little bit of the inflation, so we can get more product done at the same time. So I think the big jump you're seeing, there were some big initiatives that the county executive undertook with the zoo. Buying this building.
Yep.
The MCC, ATC building, which is a
Right.
new building, but then we're gonna be getting rid of an old building, so that'll decrease.
The Parks Improvement Program,
Yeah.
Go Outside Monroe, that was significant CIP funding.
Mhm.
Right,
So, I mean, like anything, there is maintenance and sometimes that can get deferred. And so I think we've been playing catch up in recent years to try to fix
Yeah.
some things.
yeah, the West Henrietta Road, or, Westfall Road, building you talked about getting pushed out.
yeah,
Again, to make up for some initiatives, you gotta give somewhere, so unfortunately, we push those out.
yeah,
But we talked to finance to make sure that we keep our, general building condition money in there so that we can fix things if we need to, and things just don't
Okay.
totally fall apart.
Yeah.
But the deferred maintenance is a big issue, obviously.
Yeah.
And you never catch up to it, unfortunately. You
Right.
never do.
right,
And of course, this represents all debt that we have. So this isn't just the different funding areas that this includes the enterprise, the district, all that stuff. So that is debt that we have to worry about, but it is not the same thing as your tax dollars.
But Sean did mention cash capital, so you see the debt increasing on the one slide. Or staying the same with inflation, but we have increased our cash capital projects in the recent years.
Yes,
So we are spending more counting monies for these things.
Got
As
it.
Sean said, we've
Yeah.
increased our
a little bit, yeah.
footprint. Right?
We'd love to double it, but that's not gonna happen, right? But it's gotta go up a little bit at a time.
right,
And cash capital would still show up in these first two bar graphs,
yeah,
which again, given the footprint expansion, it makes the gray dotted line more impressive.
Yeah.
I would conclude.
And I mean, as you can imagine, the needs don't change. We have more computers and electronics than we did in 2007.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be true in 2050. So things will change with the needs of Monroe County and the services we provide. And unfortunately, they generally get more expensive rather than cheaper. Except for TVs. TVs are the only thing.
My second follow-up question was, do you sense any trend, positive or negative, from state and federal funding for the CIP?
That is an open question.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion going on with that right now, with the current environment, what's gonna happen with that.
And
So I can answer a little bit in the realm of Pure Waters. That's being, even though it's EPA, the Pure Waters program is driven by state requirements, not by federal requirements. And we don't borrow a lot of money. A lot of that's just done through, because there's a lot of overhead stuff that goes along with that, administrative, MBE, all the other kind of stuff that sometimes it's just not worth borrowing the money. We get a better rate and don't have all the other overhead things to do. So we are looking from the Pure Water side, we don't think the federal thing is gonna be an issue. But there are other things that are going on. We're getting some federal money for ATC. We're getting some federal money for Pure Water's pump station. So far, those are in place. Oh, the big 60 million bucks we got for generators at Van Lair. You know, that's all federal money that's coming through the state. So we think that's all gonna be okay for now, but moving forward, who knows,
And
right?
again, the current 6-year program, 13% is state and federal.
I can't remember, yeah.
Yeah, they're probably more the airport. They're probably the
So
ones that are
it's-
more exposed.
DOT and airport. Those are the primary federal funding streams in the CIP.
Right.
Speaking a little bit off the cuff, the funding that is in there for those are pretty traditional priorities that I don't think this administration will have an issue with. It's typical road construction and it's airport construction, which may change, but those are things that I think are safer than some other funding areas. I know we in the planning department have a grant that we're worried about, that is federal funding, that may not be looked upon favorably, and there's other, departments across the county that are worried that funding streams that they thought they could count on may disappear.
Just don't have capacity things.
Yeah, and of course, there's funding that affects operating costs and there's funding that goes along with capital costs,
Correct,
right?
Right.
So I don't know what the percentage is of funding that's operating.
Yeah, that would be completely
Yeah.
Who
different.
knows, yeah.
So with the tariffs and all that sort of thing that we're looking at, are we looking at, you know, potential increases to some of these projects and things like that that we're
Yep.
implementing?
Because again, we sounded like a broken record after COVID, supply chain issues, blah, 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 and this stuff is real, unfortunately. So we do have our construction managers and other consultants that are helping us on information on what happened with tariffs. Because unfortunately, in capital stuff, steel, all the kind of things they put tariffs on,
Yeah.
are things used to build things, right?
Right,
So,
right. That's
yeah,
just what I was
we're getting ready for that.
Yeah.
Good, thank you for those answers.
And if there's
Any-
any suggestions on what you'd like to see related to that, different data pulls that we can do to help you understand how this works, please share with me. I'm happy to try to figure something out that makes sense.
Any other questions?
So want to ask if anyone who wants this printout today, then I can send a copy.
Hook me up.
I'd like them.
I'll run up and grab them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other
Want to make my choice.
business? Any other business, any other business? Okay. Hearing none, our next scheduled meeting is March 20th at 3 p.m. And I think it looks like we have a department presentation, Ishan,
Yes, from the Department of Transportation. where we
Okay,
talk about
DOT.
the legislative bonfire request.
Yep. We're also gonna go through CIP vote and the prior year project vote. So, and then we have one scheduled for the 27th of March, but, if it's needed. So,
And we see a few regular, action items for the board, so we will add into the next week's meeting.
That'll be on the,
Fine.
that'll be on the 20th.
Yes.
we'll move them to the 20th instead of having them.
Mhm.
Very good. Okay. Great. With that, I need a motion for adjournment, please. Thank you,
Second.
Andrew. Thank you, Orlando. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Great. Thank you, everyone, for your time
Thank you.
and questions and answers. All great information. Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Good.